All right, so Golf Clash announced last week during the middle of the Extreme Hills tournament that they were doing a Vineyard Acres 9-hole cup starting up this Thursday. So we got Thursday the 18th, June the 18th. We got qualification rounds on Thursday and Friday, and then we play the final round on Saturday. So I didn't want to shoot any videos during the tournament, so getting at it right now. So Vineyard Acres. So here's the deal. Vineyard Acres is a course, and it has a layout, but of course we're not following. So if you go to a Golf Clash notebook and you pull up Vineyard Acres, holes 1 through 9, we're not following that configuration in the 9-hole cup. So let me get out your pen and paper, and this is the deal. Hole number 1 of the Vineyard Acres 9-hole cup is hole number 3. Hole number 2 is hole number 6. Hole number 3 is going to be hole number 4. Hole number 4 is hole number 8. Hole number 5 is hole number 5. Hole number 6 is going to be hole number 2 of Vineyard Acres. Hole number 7 is hole number 1. Hole number 8 is hole number 7. And hole number 9 is hole number 9. Now, why they can't follow, why we have a course, and then we can't follow the course when we're playing that course for a 9-hole cup, I have no clue. But that's the deal. So that's the whole configuration. So let's start on hole number 3. So what I did in the channel, I set up a playlist. Yeah, let's get to the channel here. I set up a playlist. 956 subscribers. Thank all of you. I am amazed, absolutely amazed. The channel's doing really good. I thank all of you for subscribing and for all the people that follow the channel. To me, it's absolutely amazing. I set you guys up a playlist, and the playlist for Golf Clash Vineyard Acres 9-hole cup rookie scouting report. And I put 9 holes in here, and these are all from the Vintage Open. And of course, they're not in order because the course isn't in order. But they are in order here for the 9-hole cup. So I'll put this video at the top when I'm done, once it gets uploaded. And if you get into the playlist and you walk through it and just go through all the videos, the holes here are in the order that we're actually playing them in the 9-hole cup. All right. So let's go to Golf Clash Notebook and go to the first hole of Vineyard Acres 9-hole cup, which is going to be hole number 3. Now here's the deal. I'm going to go through and talk about these holes, and I guarantee you there's going to be 1,000 things that I'll go back and I'll listen to the video and I'll go, damn, I should have talked about that. There are so many different ways. If there's nothing else that I can help you guys and gals with, is that these holes are not like a lot of other people who produce content portray them, that this is the only way that you can go at a hole. All of these holes have multiple different ways that you can shoot them, and you need to find the one that works best for your clubs and for whatever your ball inventory is. And if one shot's not working for you, there's a lot of times we get on holes and I'm like, man, I've gone at this hole the last couple tournaments in this direction and I'm done with that. It's not working out for me like I want it to, or I'm not getting the success that I think I should get. And I'm going to shoot it some other way. And so there's lots of different ways that you can play this hole. This is an old hole that's been reconfigured. So it doesn't play like it used to play. And on this hole right here, extra mile, Kingmaker. Now, traditionally, when we play this hole, we get some kind of tailwind. So we'll get some kind of forward-moving wind. And what we really want to do is to hit over on this side right here. And a 3-power ball can get it done. You can use an extra mile with a Kingmaker or a Titan, the king of balls. That's right, you heard it here. The key is when you come around the bend, let's scroll back a little bit so that we can try and get the tee box in the picture. So if we're looking at our rookie tee box, if we draw a line from the tee box to the green, we're obviously not going to be able to go that direction. So if we're trying to hit into this area right here, we draw this line from here, and we draw this line over to there, we're going to have to cover this. So we're looking for this kind of arc. And you can see where the line intersects up here with this rough and the sand. So really you're trying to get your first bounce over in this area, and you're trying to get your second bounce so that it clears that. Or you're going to have to move it to the left so that you can put on more curl so that the ball's coming in more like this so that it can clear completely and it can roll through that area. But you can very easily, when you're doing this shot, put too much right-hand curl on it and end up clipping this area right in here. And so it's a fine line between, you know, like if you're wanting to dig, get like right up against that edge so that you can do the thing. Because a lot of times you think to yourself, okay, I'm trying to get the ball to go to the right, so I need to move the ball to the right. But if you're adding curl, curl's not represented in your ball guide. So if you're adding curl, you need to leave room for the curl to become effective. And so if you scrunch up against this too much and you put a lot of curl on it, you could very easily end up with a trajectory that takes you right into the sand. And so you got to be cognizant of where your second bounce is. So you want your first bounce to be out here and you want your second bounce to clear that rough so that between your second and your third bounce, you're going over it completely. Or from your first bounce to your second bounce, you're going over it, however it works out. And so you got to be very aware of the sand and the rough over here. The goal here with this configuration, and it is easier now than it was different before. The green was like this big before. And so it was, a lot of times you ended up off the side if you could get over, and it was a lot different. So now the green's a lot smaller. The old green, you could be on the green and you couldn't make a putt. So the newer greens, when they redesigned it, the newer greens, from anywhere on here, you can make a putt. But this is one of those newer greens that, you know, the flagpole's right here and you're right here, you can easily make a putt. But here's the fringe and you're over here by the fringe and you're on the putting surface. And even though it doesn't look like it's that far away, it can be a max overpower putt. So I would actually obviously I want to be either real close to the cup so that I can make a short little putt, or I'd rather be on the fringe so that I'm chipping it up. And it's very easy to end up a lot right up here in the front or over here on the side. And this can be a pretty treacherous little chip to do. But the main thing is to try and dial your drive in so that you're like right on the fringe. Now you can get it so that you can get up on the green, but it's a little, you got to have enough curl to bring you around the bend. But this, you put this more into play, this area right here. But it's we've got to start this tournament off by picking up the eagle on this hole. This hole, I'm not going to say that this hole is all important, but this hole is super important. You've got to get an eagle on this hole. In my opinion, whoever wins this tournament, if they didn't, you're going to have to get an eagle on this hole. There are other holes that we have opportunities on, but this hole right here is a hole that we really, really, really want to get. And it doesn't take much. You can use an extra mile 7. You can use an extra mile 8. You can use, if you've got an extra mile 6 and it doesn't have the distance, and you're having a problem, I don't know that the curl is going to be the issue. Maybe with a 6 or a 7, you might have a little bit of a distance problem. Nowadays, with all the balls that we have available to us, a 4-power ball, I can do Roman numerals here, a 4-power ball. But in most cases, you're going to be able to get this done with max overpower and a 3-power ball and get it up into that zone. I'm curious to see what an extra mile 9 can do as far as like, can you overdrive it? Or because we've got a little bit of extra distance, I can move a little bit more to the right and I can put a little bit more curl on it and try and bring it up so that I'm more up towards the cup. You can use an APOC. Apocalypse will work fine. Anything that will get you over onto this side. Now you can do a bounce over from here and then run it up. And if you're going to do the bounce over from here and run it over, you're probably better served with a big topper. But I think probably your max distance that you're going to get is going to be somewhere out in this area right here. And it's going to be, it's not that it's a super difficult chip, but you're definitely going to want to practice it because it goes uphill right here. So there's going to be an elevation. The whole goal is to bring out a bigger club with a 3-power ball and see if you can get up on the green. And it'll be a shot that we're going to have to take a few times in order to work out the adjustments. The last time we were doing it, I was just doing a straight up wind adjustment, 2.1 per ring. I was doing 4.5 top spin, and that was getting me, I think the farthest I hit was on the backside of the green where I was actually had to make a putt. Max right hand side spin, about half curl. If you want to apply all the curl, you just have to move it farther to the left in order for that to become effective. But it didn't even take all of the topspin that was on the club. So if you've got a level 6 extra mile, I think it only has 4.5 topspin. So you can probably get up there. You may not get quite as far because I think you're losing a little bit of distance with an extra mile 6, but we need to get the eagle on this hole. This is going to be a super critical hole for us to get an eagle on. Hole number 2 is going to be Vineyard Acres, hole number 6. I'm curious to see what the wind adjustments as far as elevation adjustments will be on this hole and which way the wind's blowing, because which way the wind's blowing is going to determine like what we have to do. It's a pretty straight up shot. I was taking it with 4 backspin, no side spin, 1 per ring. I was using a sniper and a navigator and going straight at it. And I've had a lot of success on this hole. Sometimes these types of holes, depending on which way they give us wind, if they give us side wind, these types of holes can be a little tricky where, this hole is definitely hole winnable. But depending on which kind of wind we get, we'll have to wait until the tournament comes out in order to see what kind of wind we're getting. That's what cracks me up is like right now, there's probably a bunch of stuff out that says, hey, you need to do a plus 10% on this. Based off what wind? Are we getting a headwind? Are we getting a pure tailwind? So I'm not going to worry about these elevation adjustments until I can get out on the hole and see which way the wind's blowing. And then I normally will try and go at these holes without doing any elevation adjustments at all, with the goal of trying to hit a perfect shot so that we can see if it's moving us off the hole. But I'm not going to worry too much about elevation adjustments until I see which way the wind's blowing in the tournament. But this is definitely a hole-in-oneable par 3. Definitely. Kmart sucks. All right, hole number 3 is going to be hole number 4 of Vineyard Acres. All right, we have a serious Albie shot here. Serious. Now, there's a bunch of different ways that you can come at this hole. Okay, here's one way. The typical way that I play this hole is with an extra mile and a kingmaker. And you don't have to do a lot of overpower when you're down in this area. And it does carry just a little teeny bit farther in here. This is one of those ends where it's not flat and then you're in the rough. It kind of slopes down a little bit and goes. And so you're losing a little bit. The farther into it you get, the more you're losing. So the farther it's going to carry. And it's really easy to end up clipping the rough down here. So you do need to make, I don't know that I've made necessarily an elevation adjustment down there, but I always like to leave myself a couple rings of separation so that I can avoid having it fall and clip that rough. But you want to get down there as far as you can so that you can get as much forward roll. And see this little divot right here? And that's kind of like the goal area. There's a fine line out here with a kingmaker. On this side of the line, you're in a grizzly or whatever your long iron of choice is. And on this side of the line, you're in short iron, whatever your short iron choice is, hornet. If you've got an upper developed hornet or a hornet that's got its ball guide. So short iron on this side, long iron on this side, and it'll be a slightly different. So if you're in your long iron, you're going to be a minimum long iron. If you're in your short iron, you're going to be a maximum short iron. So when I talk about flagpole, here's the cup. I found that with my short iron, or with my long iron, with my long iron, I'm doing a rough bump. And there's several different ways that you can come at this green. And I like the rough bump the best. I think it gives you the most consistent look at it. But for whatever reason in the past, here's the flag. When you're doing this rough bump, it wants to take a slightly irregular bounce to the right. And so I usually start off right off the left-hand edge of the cup and then make my wind adjustment. And I've hit quite a few albies on this hole, and it is doable. So we'll have to see which way the wind's blowing and that as we get into the tournament to see, and depending on where you're hitting out here. So if you want to bring as big a ball as you can because your goal really is to try and get into your short iron range. So getting into, now that we have a grizzly though, we didn't have a grizzly last time we played this. When we played the Vintage Open, we didn't have a grizzly. So I was taking it with a backbone, which I will never use again. now that the grizzly's been new and improved. So hopefully with a better club, the club that's got much better accuracy, and I just like my grizzly better than the backbone. But there is a nice little rough bump that we can do here, and it's going to be one of those shots that we have to practice. The other way you can come at this hole, if you're doing this shot right here where you're trying to lay up, and I'll go back and talk about another way to go out of here in a second. You can do, it's got a big ass backboard on it, and you can come in here with backspin and try and bring it back to the cup. And I know that a lot of people like to call it a funnel, where you're trying to bring your ball guide back around, and I'm sure that this hole has one. And if it doesn't, it missed the boat because it's got a pretty serious backboard on it. This is also a hole, if you came at it with your long iron, you could come at it with a Grim Reaper and try and do a dunk, because the backboard's such that even if you missed it, it'll backspin it right back to the hole. Now, if you get too jiggy with your backspin, it will drop off. There's a little teeny plateau where the green's at. And if you go past that plateau, it's very easy to roll back down and end up in the rough. Because once it starts rolling off the green in that direction, it's not that you're guaranteed to end up in the rough, but you're more than likely going to end up in the rough. If you find yourself in a spot of bother, which I don't know where you'd have to be, you can bring it up through the neck and try and bring it around that way. But the best way to do it is to try and get out here by this end and this mogul right here, this holla, and try and do the rough bump, or you can do the backspin. Now, there's another way that you can do this, and I've done this shot before too. You can bring out a power 5 ball, and you can start off on this side, and you can try and bring yourself through that neck to get up here where you have a short little chip. And I've done this shot several times, and I've been just like right off out in here, and it's a pretty tough little chip because of the terrain that's on the green. You can get on the putting surface from this shot, but the deal with this is you have to have everything absolutely perfect. Because if your trajectory is off just a little teeny bit, I mean, look at all of the fairway here, and where's the narrowest spot? Right here. And you're at the very end of your run, so you got a 5 power ball here, and you're trying to bring it up through that. So from the tee box, we can pan out a little, see if we can get the tee box here. Tee box is right here. So you're trying to go to this spot. And you're obviously not going to be able to start off over here where you can do a straight shot. You're starting off here. So that means you're starting off in this direction, okay? And then you're trying to bring it this way. And then at the very end of the run, you're trying to get it to go in that direction. So you're trying to get it to do this little S. And good luck. What you can do is you can end up right up here in the front so that you have a short chip. You can end up on. But it's I mean, if your trajectory and everything's not absolutely perfect when you get up there, you're going to be in big, big trouble. You could easily end up in the sand or the rough. And you have a great shot from out here. And you can get this shot from out here every single time. So it's just a matter of hitting perfect and working out our wind adjustments. I've done this 5 power shot, the five power ball shot, several times, and I know what it looks like up here. And like normally I was like, I'm pretty aggressive sometimes on par 4s, sometimes too aggressive on them, but I'm going to just lay it up because I think that, par 5s, because I think my Albie shot from right here is absolutely, I mean, it's a beautiful Albie shot. Doing a short little rough bump when you short iron range, definitely want to do that. Hole number 4. It's hole number 8. And this hole's been completely reconfigured. I was playing some Tour 8 last week in my odd account, and I got to remember how to play all of these holes right here from the pro tees. From the Ricky tee, I was using my long iron. I was doing 1 backspin, and I was doing plus 20%. I was using a long iron and a navigator, 1 backspin, plus 20%. And I was starting off, I was just going straight out the cup. So my first bounce was somewhere like right here on the fairway, and then bringing it up. And so these par 3s, I'm going to have to wait and see been a long time since I played these par threes. It's been the vintage cup pretty much since I played a lot of these par threes. And once again, it's all going to be dependent on what kind of wind they give us here. Are they going to give us headwind on? They almost always give us headwind on one of the par threes. So you're right at, with a navigator and sniper, you are literally right at your red line. So you don't have a lot of room for maneuver. So if they give us, a headwind here, we got lots of room for maneuver. If they give us a tailwind here, we're going to have to see where we're at as far as our club. Like we may have to use a little bit more backspin in order to get it to stop right at the cup. But this is another hole that is very, very hole-in-oneable. And so we'll have to try and dial in the adjustments on this hole once we see what kind of wind they're going to give us in the tournament. Hole number 5. Vineyard Acres, hole number 5. All right. Okay, I love this hole. I mean, this is one of the few holes in the game that I've hit albies with a big dog. And the deal is that you can use, if you've got an upper developed Guardian that has the same distance. So if you got like I'm not sure if it's a level 8 where it's the same distance as a big dog, 179 versus 180. I think it's level 8. So if you got a level 8 Guardian, you can use the Guardian. If you've got a level 7 Guardian, I think it doesn't hit as far as a big dog. You'll have to work it a little bit more, and you may have to put more topspin on it than what you have in that club, because I think you only have like 2.5, 2 3/4 topspin when you're at level 7, so it might not work. On the drive, I was using an extra mile and a Kingmaker. I was doing, so let's write this down, because this is, I want to get, in order to get up into this range right here so that I can do one bounce here and one bounce on the green side with my big dog, we want to get as far down here in this tip as we can. And if we draw a line through it, we want to be in this quadrant. I mean, very specific, because the difference between being in this quadrant and this quadrant over here is 15 yards. And it really changes your shot that you can take up here at the beginning. If you can get into this quadrant, you can actually, in some cases, start on the other side, and there's a lot of different ways that you can go at the green, and we'll talk about that when we get to the green part. But I really want to end up in this quadrant. So what I was using was an extra mile. I was using a Kingmaker. I was doing no more than 3 topspin. And you'll have to dial that in with your club. But no more than 3 topspin. And I think at the time, the last time we shot this, I was probably using an extra mile 8. So that's going to be about the same with an extra mile. You're going to get a little bit more distance with an extra mile 8 than you do with an extra mile 7. So you'll have to dial that in. If you've got a 7 or a 6 or a 5, you'll have to dial that in. The distance that I was getting was out in this range was somewhere between 355 and 360. I think you can probably go farther than 360, but then you're really pushing the limit. So somewhere between 355 and 360 was the range that I was looking for in this quadrant. And to get that done, I was using max left-hand side spin, max left side spin, about half curl, and 3 topspin, no more than 3 topspin. And that was getting me to the 355, 360 range. Okay, that's shot number 1. And you can obviously get out into this zone out here with other clubs, especially if you're not using any more than 3 topspin. You could get out there with a rock. Now that I don't know that when we played this in the Vintage Open, which I think is the last time we played this hole, the rock hadn't been buffed. So if you've got an upper developed rock, you're pretty dang close to the same distance, and you got access to 4 topspins. So you could probably get out into that area with a 100% accurate club. And I may try that, because if you can get up there with a 100% accurate club, that's good. And the goal here is to get out into this area, without using any overpower. So you're bouncing on this side right here, and then you're bringing it around back over to this area. And you're kind of riding along this. Now you can, and I've seen it done before, I've seen people do a max where they bring out a big ball and they try and bridge this gap to get over into this area right here. and trying to get the bleed forward so that you're up here and you're in, from over here you can bring a sniper, or you can, but it's you got to get over, because if you don't get over, you just put your eagle at risk. But if you're looking for the traditional way to get over, is out in this area. Second shot, you got some options depending on where you end up. So with my big dog, and now I think I'm going to use a Guardian, because a Guardian's got a little bit better ball guide than what the big dog has. And so with a big dog, what I found is that when I got one bounce here, I'm using one backspin. So I'm using a big dog. I'm using one backspin. First bounce here. Second bounce is just clearing. And I'm aiming, so like if here's the flagpole, I'm aiming a little bit to the left because you don't have really good ball guide. But what it wants to do is when it hits, the course itself is like pulling everything to the right. And so I'm aiming just a little bit left of the cup with the one backspin. And the last several times that this has been in a tournament, I've hit several albies each weekend round, or each tournament week, using a big dog on this. But I think if you've got a maxed out Guardian, you're going to get better ball guide, and you're at the same 180, 179, 180 right there. You're at the same distance as a big dog, and you're going to have a lot better ball guide on the other side. But if you try this shot with a Guardian and you're aiming right at the cup and you end up to the right of the cup, I'm not necessarily sure that it's a wind adjustment. What I think more is it's just the way that the terrain is on the green, where the ball is wanting to fall to the right. So you could make a wind adjustment, but I'm not sure that it's a wind adjustment. And the reason I'm saying that is let's say you had a 5 mile an hour wind and you do a 10%, that's 0.5, and then you have a 4 mile an hour wind, that's 0.4. So the difference is here, and I know that doesn't sound like a lot of difference when you're making the adjustment here, but out here on the other end, that is a big movement. I'm not so sure that it's a wind adjustment where it's a variable. I think the course just rolls to the right. So we'll have to play this a few times. I'm only going to play one account this week. We've had so many tournaments. I'm just going to play my 77 account. I'm just going to go out there and try and have some fun. And I'm not going to do a whole lot. I will practice on Thursday. I'm going to play on Friday, and I'm going to play on Saturday, and that's it. I'm not going to spend a lot of time. I'm just going to go out there one day and practice, and then see what happens on it. But I definitely want to have one day of practice so that we can go out and at least take a look at the holes. But this is definitely doable. Now, if you get far enough out on that drive and you could bring a bigger ball. Even if I get into the quadrant that I'm looking at, there is an opportunity to do a rough bump here where you can do a rough bump. I don't like doing rough bumps with a big dog because of the ball guide situation. And it has the topspin to get you up there, but you do have some options here. You can bring a sniper from down there, and you can do a sniper bounce over where you got a little bit better ball guide. You're going to be a little bit further back. But if you brought a bigger ball, instead of bringing a 3-power ball, if you brought like a 4-power ball or even a 5-power ball, it's not going to be helpful on the drive. You'll have to readjust your drive a little bit. But where it can help you is on the second shot, it'll get that sniper up into this zone right here so that you can do the same shot that I'm doing with the big dog, but you'll have all that ball guide. So there's a lot of different ways that you can do this, and it's going to be dependent on what clubs you have in your bag and what balls you have in your inventory. And hopefully Playdemic will offer some Power 5 balls, because the last couple tournaments I have blown through just about every Power 5 ball that I have. But I like this hole, and you have lots of options on it, but don't, this shot from out here, I mean, when we first started playing this a lot in one-on-one, there's a lot of times I just lay it up right here and then shoot it up in here, because this is a on and 3 and one-on-one. If you're using a Marlin, it's pretty difficult to get up there in 3, up there in 2 with a Marlin, and then taking a long shot to get in. But if you're trying to get on the green in 2, this can be if you're trying to get on the green in 2 so that you can give yourself a killer eagle, but you want an Albie shot, hit it down into this quadrant. Big dog, upper developed Guardian, or a big ball sniper, and trying to come right at it. I think the shot that I put in the playlist I did with a big dog, and that's a great I did that. I've done that shot on here quite a few times, but I do have a better Guardian now, so I might try it with a Guardian. All right, what hole was that? That was hole number 5. Hole number 6. How much time I got on this video? I always think that I'm going to make these videos short, and then I get caught up in it, and there's 1,000 ways to play them. Hole number 6 is hole number 2. Hole number 2. All right. Now there's a bunch of different ways you can play this. There's a max overpower hook shot that you can do here, and I'm not sure in rookie what the deal is with it, but I know like from the expertise and in master, especially in expert, there is a max overpower hook shot that you can do that you can try and get over into this area right here. There is a shot that you can do off of this pad. There's a max overpower hook shot that you can do. I've seen it done. I've seen several different approaches with max overpower hook shots on here to try and get on a 1. And it's pretty, because of all the water that we have in front of us and because of the small landing zones that we have on the other side, it's going to be pretty risky. And I'm not sure if we can do it in rookie, to be honest with you. Maybe with a 5 power ball we can. Sometimes we can get that done, but we have to bring out a bigger ball. Whereas especially in expert, they've got the winds are so much higher that you can get some shots done in expert that you can't get done anywhere else because they're from the middle tee and the winds are high. 2 ways to go at it traditionally. You can try and go to the lower part down here, and if you're in this lower area, you're in long iron. I've never really liked this shot, and I'll tell you why. The deal is it's tricky to get down in there, and it's very easy to end up in trouble. If you're in front up here and you end up in trouble, you can recover with a Nirvana. But if you don't have a Nirvana, you can't recover. You're SOL. I think if you have an upper level, if you bring an Amazon, or if you have an upper level razor, like a maxed out razor, you can. But if you've got, any other, and if you end up in the sand, you're in trouble, even if you have a Spitfire. So there's a lot of ways that you can get in trouble down here. And when we talk about angle, you really want to open this mouth up so that you can come in it, so that you're not having to come in it like from back over, like if you were back over in, let's get that up. If you were back over in this area, you're trying to get to the green, you're having to come at it like this through the opening. If you're trying to hit it down in here, your goal is to get as far down in here as you can so that you're down in this zone. And I see a lot of people bleed out and they end up in the rough. And that way it opens up the mouth. So if we draw that line, for me, this is going to be my optimal areas right here. This is where I'm trying to hit. So by getting up to the top of this hill, you've got a nice straight in shot with a sniper. And to get up on the top of that hill, in the past, I've always used a QB and a katana. And I've done 1.5 topspin max. And that puts you at the top. It goes up the hill. There's a ridge right here, and then it goes down the hill. And it's very easy. If you crest this ridge with any speed, you'll end up in the rough over here, and you are sunk. You're in the brown stuff. Okay, so you just want to end up in the top so that you open up this mouth, and you're in this zone right up here so that you've got a nice straight in shot to the cup. So you don't have to put a lot of side spin on in order to get the ball to go around. You're going to have to put on a little just depending on where you're at, but you don't want to have to max it out and give yourself a nice clean shot at it. One of the things that I will point out on the drive shot here is if you're using a QB, and you watch my videos on a regular basis, I'm like 3 rings off. I'm like 3 rings of separation. I want my ball guide to go right down through the middle. I don't want to be riding one side or the other. If I hit it great to the left or the right, I want to leave myself plenty of room. But one of the things here is the wind, in a lot of cases, is blowing in this direction. And so in order for our normal thing is we'd approach the ball like this, and then we would pull the wind out. Well, these trees are in the way. So I think there's been maybe one time that we were on this hole that the wind was actually blowing like this or blowing like this. And so we were able to pull it out over the fairway. But traditionally, the way that the wind's blowing is it's coming in from the right, and you'll have to spin around this way and push the wind out. So just be prepared for that, because these trees are going to be in your way and you won't be able to pull the wind out if the wind's blowing from the right in any direction. Once you get up here in the top, if you've got a katana and a sniper, your red line's right there. And what I have found, I never had a lot of success on this hole, but the last time we played it, it finally dawned on me. Even though I'm at minimum club, I started using a max number 1 per ring, and I started making them. And I've hit shots on this hole over the years that it's been in. This Vineyard Acres has been around for a long time. I remember when these holes first came out. And one of the things about Vineyard Acres was it was one of the first courses that came out where position was super important. It wasn't just about pounding the ball out there to us. What was important was being between 355 and 360. Because if you hit it over that, you were in a suboptimal area. You hit it less than that, you were in suboptimal. The optimal area to hit was 355 to 360. And so it taught us a lot about like positional shooting when these holes first came out. And I never really, when it first came out too, I didn't think a lot about, max club, mid club. So when I was playing one-on-one, I'd always just come on this hole and I'd always just do 1 per ring because I don't really think about, when I'm playing one-on-one, I'm doing it. And I was fairly successful in one-on-one. But then when tournaments came around, I was really focusing on like, well, where are you at in your club? And I'm like, well, I'm in minimum club. So at minimum club, I hit 1.5 and I was hitting 1.5 and I was doing all these wind adjustments. And what I found was that if I just hit 1 per ring, even though I'm at minimum club, I actually started making shots. And I mean, like it's right on if you hit perfect. So that's what I'm going to do. And on the drive shot down here, you want to be somewhere in the 300 to 305. Somewhere in that range. And that puts you right at the top of the hill. And that puts your red line right here with your sniper. And I'm not using a lot of movement on the sniper. I'm trying to be as close to my red line because I'm trying to be as close to my red line as I can with enough room that I can work out the wind. All right, hole number 7. Maybe is going to be Vineyard Acres, hole number 1. Uno. All right, there's several different ways that you can go at this hole. I think in the playlist, I probably demoed doing a backspin shot where you can come up here with a Saturn and a katana and you can go right at it and try and backspin it in. The better way to go out, and there is a rough bump that you can do here, but the way that I'm going to play this hole, and I've had a lot of success with this shot, is coming at it from down into this zone right here. And I want my second bounce. I want my first bounce to be here, and I want my second bounce to be on the fringe, right off the fringe. There's a little patch of fairway. So here's the rough, here's the fairway area, here's the fringe. And I want my second bounce to be right there on the fairway. And then just dribbling up towards the hole. And what kind of elevation or what kind of adjustment we're going to have to make, if we have to make fine-tune adjustments, is once again going to be dependent on the wind on these par 3s. But you can do this where you do 1 bounce here, and there's a risk here. If you watch my channel on a regular basis, I'm always 2 rings off of any transitional surface, and I am going to keep 2 rings off of the transitional surface. I may have to put on a little bit of side spin, just a little, just to bring the tail back to the hole. But I want to give myself 2 rings of separation. I see a lot of people. You're going to see a lot of people this week who clip this rough because they were a half a ring off trying to keep their ball guide straight, and they hit a grate to the right and they clipped that rough. Or they short shot it and they clip the rough up here in the top and they end up in the sand. And so I want my first bounce to be in this area here, 2 rings off, and I want my second bounce to be on the fairway and then dribbling towards the cup. Or you can do the backspin shot, or you could potentially do a rough bump. But I think this rough bump is going to be problematic because it's so steep right here, because it kind of humps up. Here's the green, and then it kind of humps up, and then it goes down into the sand. And the rough up here may be a little problematic to do a rough bump, but it's possible. It may take an irregular bounce. It's not going to be like one of those traditional rough bumps where you're clipping the rough and then it's pretty straight. You're going to have to deal with this little hump. Great chance for hole-in-one on this hole, too. All 3 of these par 3s have great chances for hole-in-one, and we're just going to have to dial them in once we find out what the tournament wins are. Hole number 8. It's going to be Vineyard Acres, hole number 7. All right. There's a bunch of different ways we can go with this hole too. There is, let's talk about the crazy shots first. There is a max overpower hook shot you can do on this hole. And you can do it with a QB. And you'll have to practice the shot, but you're going to take your QB and your whole goal is to try and get through this area so that you end up out in here. There is a shot that you can take through the trees. Now, I'm not sure because they've changed a lot of the trees on these holes. We used to be able to bring out a power 5 ball, and you could do a max overpower shot through the trees, try and find one of these lanes through the trees, and you're kind of doing a rough bump. And then once again, you're bleeding out into this area. I haven't seen a shot that gets you on the green and one. You're out in this area typically. You are a little bit closer. So instead of hitting with a wood, you may be hitting with a long iron. You may be able to get it out here far enough that you could be in your short iron range, but typically it's going to be a long iron shot if you do one of those where you're doing the max overpower hook or you're trying to hit through the trees with a big power ball. The traditional way to go at it is to bring out, and you can do this with, you can do it with an extra mile, you can do it with Apocalypse, you can do it with a rock. Any of those clubs are going to work. Any of the clubs that hit, the farther forward you are, the better. You can bring out a big topper. Because you can get distance with it with all of its top spin. I like to be 2.5 rings. 2.5 rings off of this transitional surface between, or 1.5 rings, excuse me, 1.5 rings off of this transitional surface. I don't normally, I'm almost always like to be 2 rings off, but here's the problem. This slope over here, this goes up. So let's see if I can draw it here. So it goes up the hill like this. So you're hitting, here's that rough area, and you're hitting up here. So anything that's to the left is downhill. And so what happens is that when you hit it from where the tee box is at, let's see if we can scroll back to where the tee box is. I wish I could rotate this picture a little bit. So from the tee box hitting into this area right here, you're wanting to go down into this zone. And because this is uphill along here, the farther you hit it to the left, the more it wants to bounce to the left. And it's very easy to end up down here in the rough or in the sand if you catch a grate to the left. And so I want to try and pinch it as much as I can, but still leave myself some room between the fairway and this rough. And I'm usually about 1.5, 1 3/4 rings, kind of cheating on my own rule of always being 2 rings off of any transitional surface. And I want to put on as much curl as I possibly can. So whatever club you got. Now, if you got an Apocalypse, you may actually over curl it and come out here and clip the rough out in this area right here and end up bleeding forward. But with an extra mile, I don't think there's enough curl on it for you to be able to get that done, unless you hit it great to the right, and you might come out here and clip that rough. But the goal is to try and end up in this zone right here. And from this zone, you're in about, if you're using a Guardian, you're in mid-Guardian, and there's several different ways that you can go at the green. So my drive shot on here, I'm going to use an extra mile and a katana. I'm looking for that side spin. And I don't really need the distance, and my goal is to try and get out into this area as close out here as you can, but it's not so important that you pick up this forward moving distance, because if you look at arc, from the cup out into this area, it's not really going to matter if you get all the way out here or if you're right here. You're still the same distance from the cup. So if you can walk it around the corner a little bit, and you can start off a little bit, like if you have an Apocalypse, you could start off probably 2.5 rings off of the transitional surface. And if you applied all the curl, you might be able to get into the same zone. So it doesn't really benefit you so much to get all of that distance and get out there, depending on what shot you're taking to the cup. So the rough area here, and I think the rough area comes like this, where everything below this is rough. You could do a rough bump. There's probably a rough bump that you can do right here in the front to try and come at it. I'm not sure if you could use the rough way over here. If you ended up in trouble, you could use that rough to try and bleed yourself forward. But I think that if you were doing a rough bump, it would be on the top of this little bunker. I typically like to come at it with a backspin shot, and I'm using this backboard back here. So if you take the cup, I've got I'm orange ring off. So I'm 2 rings off of that transitional area with max backspin. And so I've got my orange ring off here, doing a normal wind adjustment for mid club and using the backboard to try and bring it back to the cup. And it only works with you can do it with a sniper. And you may be able to with a sniper, especially if you have an upper developed sniper, you may be able to use that backboard to get the tail to come back around, and you might be able to walk it down, walk it back to it. But I think there's going to be a bunch of different ways that we can go at this green, where we could do a rough bump. We could come at it from down low, trying to bring it around. We can do a backspin shot coming down to it, and we may have several options on trying to do the backspin shot. If you find yourself in any trouble, and I see people do this all the time where they're in trouble, and what the deal is they're not looking at the hole. Let's say they end up way down here, they end up someplace non-desirable, and they're having a hard time where they can't get up into this area without using overpower. This is a monster backboard. I mean, monster. This is Daytona. It's like a 40-degree angle up here. And what you can do, if you find yourself short where you're having to do a lot of overpower, you're just flat out short up in this area, is don't worry about it. Come out into this area right here. Even if you come out into this, if you got a sniper and you've got a lot of topspin, and run your topspin all the way out, because you can just follow this around and it'll drop you right down to the green. Now, you may not make it all the way to the green. You may be on the fringe, but it's a very easy chip from right there. So if you find yourself in a lot of trouble where you're having a hard time reaching this distance, this area, don't sweat it. And what's crazy is you'll see people all week long that'll do this. They'll be in the suboptimal area where they can't get to this, and they'll force the issue. And it's like, guys, to the right, there's fairway all the way around, and there's a huge backboard back here that you can roll down. Use the area to the right if you find yourself in a suboptimal area. You can get eagle on this hole. This is not the easiest hole out there to get an eagle on, but you can get eagle, and there's a bunch of different ways that we can go at it. In the past, I've always done the backspin, and I've been pretty successful with the backspin shot on it. But I'll take a look at it and see kind of like where we're at, because part of it is that we have different clubs from the last time we played this hole. Hole number 9. All right. Okay, here we go. We got tons of options here. Option number 1 right here. I was using a QB, and 1/2 backspin. I was using a Kingmaker, but you could bring any ball. The bigger the ball you bring, the better it'll be for the second shot. But if you bring a Kingmaker, you can get it done with a Kingmaker. If you bring a power 4 ball, you're going to have to adjust this. If you bring a power 5 ball, you're going to have to adjust this, because you're going to have to adjust your club so that you don't overshoot this, because you do not want to overshoot it if you bring out a bigger ball. You want to end up right there. Second shot, big dog. Max overpower. First bounce is out in this area, and you're trying to get it as far forward as you can so that when you end up down here, you've got a nice straight shot to the green. You don't have to put any curl. There's no rough in your way. You got a nice straight shot to the green, and you're going to be somewhere in your short iron. Depending on the ball that you bring, you could be as close as minimum short iron to max short iron, but the whole goal is to get out here and give yourself a short iron shot. That's one way to go at it. Another way to go at it is you could hit to the same area, and if you don't have, let's say you don't have big, you should have a big dog. And even if you bring out a lower developed ball, you can probably still get out into this area so that you can get up and get your eagle. Actually, hold on. Get your eagle and go home. So it'd be 1 shot, 2 shots on the green, and 3. And you could still have a shot at eagle. This is a tough hole to eagle. I've also done shots where if you don't have a bigger ball inventory, you can come into this area, and if you're not able to clear these trees right here, you got to get past this zone in order to have a shot without having to use curl, because anytime you include the word curl in a shot, your chances of repeatability or making it have been extremely diminished. What you can do is you can come out into this area, get on your red line, wherever your red line is out here, and you can use max backspin, side spin, and curl, and just bring yourself around so that you're up in the tip, and then you have a straight in shot with your wood. You could also hit it over here, and you could then you could shoot it up into that area. But this is a tricky little shot right here, and if you end up in trouble here, you are in big trouble. Okay? If you end up here in the rough, you can hit it over into this area and still be able to recover to get your birdie. The other way you can go at it is you can bring a power 5 ball, and from the tee box, you want your first bounce to be out in here, and you're trying to bridge this gap so that you can get over into this area. Now, the last time we played this in a tournament, my buddy Scooby had a bunch of power 5 balls. So he was working to see like what kind of effort it would take to get out into this area. And then what I was doing every time I hit this hole was I would lay it up out here, and then I would lay it up right here. And then I was practicing with a big dog, a max overpower hook shot, where I was starting off in this area right here, and I was trying to bring it around to the cup. And I was ending up, and I can't remember where I set it up now. But for those of you like max overpower hook shots, if you can get over into this area, there is a way to get on in two, where you can get up into this area right here, and then you can bring a big dog and you can try and bring it around so that you're up on the fringe. I think you're still going to have a chip. You might be able to get up on the green where you have a putt, but you're probably still going to have a chip, but it's going to be a short chip versus a short iron shot. But you got a beautiful short iron shot here if you just hit to this zone right here, big dog it through the gap, get up into this area, and then short iron it in. You have a very makeable eagle with your short iron. But there is a way that we could potentially get on into if you can blast it over to the other side. My deal is that if you're not doing a max overpower hook shot to try and bring it around these trees to get it out here, you're not going to net that much more look at it doing a traditional shot, just trying to wrap it around the trees. You're not going to net that much more distance, and you're still going to have to take another shot. Whereas from here, you can do it with a 3 power ball, and here you have to have a 5 power ball. And this is only going to work if you can get out over to this side. If you end up in the rough right here, now the good news is you have a 5 power ball. And the real good news would be is if you brought a Nirvana, you could still end up in a potentially good area out here, so you still have a shot at it, so you could recover and still give yourself a shot. But we do have some options on how we could play this hole. If you don't have really good ball inventory, you don't have any power 3 balls, but you want to give yourself at least a look at eagle where you don't have to do curl, lay it up, go in with your wood. All right. When we played the Vintage Open, minus 14 on this, trying to pick up 2 shots, because we do have 2 par 5s that can be tough eagles. One of them, if we hit it right, we do have an Albie shot on. But if you don't have if you don't have any power 3 balls or bigger balls, you may have a rough time just trying to get your eagle. I mean, they're kind of like this hole right here. This is a par 5, and it's a birdie hole with an eagle opportunity. Not one time did you hear me say the word Albie, because I don't think there is an Albie. Maybe with the max overpower hook shot, if you got over to the other side, I mean, you might be able to include the word Albie, but it would be like a very low percentage. The other par 5, which is hole number 5, let's think, it has an Albie opportunity. But depending on how you play it, if you mess up there, you can very easily find yourself on in 3 and putting for birdie. So it can be a very tricky hole. So minus 14 was a pretty good round on these holes when we played them in the Vintage Open. All 3 par 3s have an opportunity. Hole number 1 has a great opportunity. Hole number 4, we got a good opportunity. So, I mean, we have some great opportunities to pick up shots. But I think what we're looking for in the Vineyard Acres is minus 14, minus 15. Those are probably winning rounds. I mean, if you can shoot better than that, then obviously then you're in the catbird seat. But 14, 15, I think those are definitely winning rounds, with 14 being a pretty good score based off of like this hole right here. This drops us from minus 12 to minus 11 for our minimum score. I really think that the mid par 5, you're going to have to get an eagle on it. So that puts us at minus 11 is our minimum score. So if you're shooting a minus 14, that's picking up 3 on a side. So anything better than that, you're definitely giving yourself a much better opportunity. So I think minus 11 is going to be our minimum score as we go in. And we really want to be trying to shoot for the minus 14 per side or better in order to have a great chance for a win. All right. I always go in and I always think, hey, I'm going to get this done in 30 minutes. And here we are at 56 minutes. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing to the channel. If you're not a subscriber, please subscribe. The numbers have gone up. So I used to have like 53% of the people that watch my channel weren't subscribers and 47 were, and now it's flipped around. So I've got more of the people that watch the channel are subscribers than non. And I appreciate all of you for subscribing, and hopefully everybody has a great tournament. And I will post some video as we get into the tournament rounds. Thanks for watching.